African leaders are gathered in Accra, Ghana for the Afreximbank 30th annual meetings, kicking off with a bold step, the launch of Afrexinsure, an insurance management services company established to reduce generational trade and infrastructure deficit.
In the context of the 120 billion and 100 billion annual trade and infrastructure financing gap, respectively, adding insurance to the group's portfolio will help ensure the availability of financing. It will help de-risk large products and crowding investment required to develop the infrastructure networks necessary for development of trade and commerce across the continent.
After that, remarks were delivered by financial leaders across Africa.
Since its establishment 3 decades ago, Afreximbank has transitioned into a first-class supranational financial institution, championing African trade and driving growth across multiple sectors in Africa. Afreximbank has also had a good working relationship with us at the Bank of Ghana and facilitated foreign exchange swap arrangements with banks in Ghana to boost foreign exchange liquidity support for Ghana's international trade.
In this regard, we have to applaud the bank for its efforts and achievements during 2022 in developing and implementing new solutions to alleviate the negative repercussions from global shocks on the continent.
The partnership with Afreximbank is so critical. And I know that my colleagues in the African Union, in the overall family of the African Union, Ambassador Muchanga is here, CEO Nados is here. All of us in the African Union depend on Afreximbank for your support, for your wisdom, and of course to make sure that as Africans.
Then came the plenary sessions, beginning with turbocharging implementation of the AfCFTA and the bold steps needed for its actualization. Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, had a fireside chat on the importance of the ease of travel and trade across the continent.
So what I keep saying is that yes, AfCFTA is the greatest idea. It will help to grow all our economies. It will create massive amount of jobs. Most of these youth that we have that are littering around, they will be able to have jobs. But we have to cooperate. We have to make sure that, things move. I don't want to now be in a position where I used to be, because right now I have the African passport. But the African Union passport allows you to move around, even though there are about 2-3 countries that are not agreeing up to now. I don't know why. But you see, if I have to get a visa to get into country A as an African, and now we go with a British guy or maybe a Nigerian, it has happened to me, a Nigerian holding British passport, he was allowed in, and arguing, debating about my visa. And I'm the one, and I'm the one with the money.
Can you imagine?
Yes.
Can you imagine?
So I think what maybe African countries they need to do is that why don't you give Africans visa on arrival? That will facilitate trade.
Yes.
If you are making life difficult for me, there's no way I'll go and invest.
The theme of the day was echoed by other corporate leaders.
Where the genius of transformation will come from is what Afreximbank is doing, is what you are doing. What you're doing is working, and what you're doing, combining demography with productivity. If we do not combine demography with productivity, we will not get the kind of transformation, we will not unlock the genius. And what I learned from AGOA is going to take market access, it's going to take the power of examples, it's going to take the kind of commitment that many of you are doing. It's going to take connections. It's going to take the global approach. It's going to take mobilizing resources.
Food security is a concern for political and development leaders. So, what does the continent need to feed itself? This was on the front burner.
The Food and Agriculture Organization's 2022 report on the state of food security and nutrition in the world estimates that around 2.3 billion people, nearly 30% of the global population, were moderately or food insecure in 2021, and as many as 828 million people were affected by hunger. What are African leaders, politicians, technocrats, and NGOs doing to mitigate against these challenges that threaten our food security? The focus of the agriculture sector should therefore include having modern agricultural technology for increased productivity and production, having environmentally sustainable and climate resilient economies and communities, and well-informed citizenry and skills development, which is underpinned by science, technology, and innovation. We also need to acknowledge and embrace our own indigenous knowledge systems. We need to produce nutritious food crops, reduce the consumption of chemically laden food crops, and produce herbal products to cater for the well-being of our citizens, and also make skills development in agriculture fashionable to young people, and never, ever leave women behind.
Today's sessions highlighted the need for interconnectedness of the African continent, focusing on trade, food, and security. However, what a prosperous Africa looks like also involves promoting culture, arts, and literature.
If you can, for instance, translate not just what is being produced now, but history, even scientific subjects, you translate them, you have one common language, you're already producing more material of teaching, of enlightenment, which is very good for the economy. It's good for printers, it's good for booksellers, it's good for bookshops, it's good for the writers also. Your royalties increase just a little bit. And so all these various factors guided or sort of influenced our decisions at that time. But there's no question at all in my mind, and I'm sure you agree with this, that language itself is an instrument, not just of livelihood. It's also of struggle, it's a language of economics, it's a language, it's an instrument of science, of teaching, of understanding. It even affects the human psyche, which means it also affects the collective psyche, binds people together or separates people.
And that was day one of Afreximbank's 30th anniversary and annual meetings. Day two promises a refreshing of Afreximbank's vision. Nkechi Nana, Arise News, Accra.